All right, Sean Zittel here with my man, world-class trainer Stephen Breadman Edwards has a lot of familiarity with this fight Saturday night, not only from his constant tape studies of the championship level, but being a Philly trainer, being a guy who has trained world champions in Philadelphia. He's got to be very familiar with Jaron Boots Ennis challenging Xander Zayas for the unified titles in Brooklyn this Saturday. Bread, man, thanks for joining. You ha First of all, man, how much have you seen Jaron spar in the dungeon with in Bosie's gym, and just how familiar are you with him? And there's a lot of talk, understandably, about what a special talent Jaron Ennis is. What are you expecting to see from him Saturday, and how far back do you go with Jaron?
Well, I've known his dad for years, but the first time I was ever around him was 2014, and it was the summer of 2014, and we needed some sparring partners for Julian Williams, and Julian was on the rise at the time. He was one of the hottest prospects in the world, transitioning to the contender stage, and he was like running through sparring partners, and Boots' dad, Boozy, was a friend of mine. He's like, Boots can spar. Boots can spar. That's how he talks. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And and I'm like, he's a little young, he's sure he can, handle. He said, no, he'll be just fine. And he was just fine, Sean. And and what impressed me the most about him is I paid him, but he's like, Brad, I don't want no money. I just want to work. I just need to work. I don't care. And every time I would go to pay him, he would always tell me, I don't want the money. And every time I would give it to him and say, man, son, you earned it. You're gonna be a special fighter. You earned it. Take the money, man. Don't turn down no money. And I would pay him. He would give us all the rounds we want, give you any style you want. Southpaw, orthodox, come forward, go backward. I mean, he could just do everything. I was just so impressed with him. And Julian wasn't taking it easy on him. You couldn't. I mean, he was trying to put it on the kid, and he was standing up, man. And I never forgot that. That kind of just always stood out in my mind, like wow. And I never forget. I called Al Heyman, and I said, "Hey, Mr. Heyman, I seen a special kid today. I seen a kid that's probably has the biggest upside of anybody I've ever seen in Philadelphia." Now, mind you, I was 2 for 2 with Mr. Heyman. I told him about Julian Williams. He turned out to be a world champion. Told him about Stephen Fulton. We was all in the same gym. He turned out to be a world champion. I said, this kid right here, his upside is probably higher than Scooters and J-Rocks. He's like, what? I'm telling you, I only can go by what I see. I don't train him. I don't have anything to do with his career, but I'm telling you, this kid is different. And that was just that. All I could do is just say what I saw. And then as he was going through his progressions through the years, he just kept getting better and better. And he's definitely a phenomenal talent. I think the world hasn't seen the best of him yet. And, maybe we'll see it Saturday night. We'll see.
What chances do you give Xander against when the talent goes to Jaron? When you talk about the tools of speed and punching power in both hands and athleticism, but Zayas, he by meticulously studying Jaron, seeing things he sees as holes in his game, maybe from the Chukajan fights in particular, he thinks he can offset that by being studious and disciplined and sound. What kind of chances do you give him of actually doing that?
I give the fight 65-35 in Ennis' favor. I don't think that Zayas is everybody has a shot, Sean. You know what I mean? I would never say that Boots can't lose. Anybody could lose a fight. If Roy Jones can lose a fight, if you were around in the 90s and you saw how dominant Roy Jones was and how brutal his one punch power it was and how his reflexes was, if he could lose a fight, anybody could lose a fight. You know what I mean? I know that because he lost late in his career that maybe his legacy may get tarnished, but there has not been a better fighter to come along after Roy Jones, despite what people try to, this guy, that guy. None of them are better than Roy Jones, in my opinion. None of them. Nobody who's come after him is better than him. and he could lose. He lost. So I would never say that Boots can't lose. You have a bad night, the other guy rises to the occasion, then you could lose a fight. But the thing about Boots that people don't realize is he has a tremendous work ethic. It's kind of like weird how, like, these days, these guys only fight like twice a year. But whenever you go to his dad's gym, he's in there.
Lost you for just a second there, Brad.
That's where the guys with the talent, where the talent doesn't, the accomplishments doesn't meet the talent is because those guys don't have a work ethic. This kid is in the gym all the time. So it's hard to creep up on the kid that's in the gym the way he is, because he has a superior work ethic where we had guys like, I don't want to name anybody because it's going to sound like I'm criticizing, but we've had guys in the past that were super talented, but you could see they didn't have the work ethics. They drank, they partied, they did other things. So they kind of underachieved a little bit in their career. If Ennis underachieves, it will be because the business team couldn't get him the right fights. It won't be because he self-destructed and shot himself in the foot, so to speak.
What about so it looked one way when he fought guys coming forward like Lipinets or Stanionis or Villa, and when he fought a guy who gave him some angles, fought off the back foot more like Jukajan, he goes the distance twice. I think Zayas has good footwork too. He's going to look to implement some of those and take it a step or two further, try to execute that. What kind of How do you think that goes for Zayas? What kind of problem does that present for Jaron Saturday night?
That's a great question. And every fighter has something, has their preferences. I don't think that Boots fighting a guy that moves away from him is so much of a weakness. I just think that he has a preference of a guy that's trying to attack him. You know what I'm saying? There's a little difference. Like when we see a guy have a little bit of trouble, we kind of equate that to a weakness. It's not really a weakness, but some guys like you to like come to him. Most punchers would rather you go to him. You know what I mean? Like the great James Toney, for an example. If you ask him what he would rather do, he would rather a guy come at him like Vasily Jirov than a guy move away from him like Roy Jones or Michael Nunn did. I don't know if it's necessarily a weakness. I just think that as time goes on, we figure out what everybody likes and what everybody doesn't like. You know what I mean? Like, it's like saying Floyd Mayweather's weakness is a jab, because Cotto and Oscar hit him with jabs. It's not so much a weakness. It's just that's a shot that gets through on him that may give him a little bit of trouble, but he still won the fights. The Karen fight, I think that this is more of a issue with Boots. People criticize Boots for having bad defense. I don't think he has bad defense. I think that he's an offensive first fighter, and offensive first fighters, they get hit, a little bit more than defensive first fighters. But if you look at his punch stats and stuff like that, he's not taking 20 punches around. He's not getting dropped. He's not losing rounds, and he's not getting hit in combination. So sometimes I think that gets a little bit misguided with the criticism of, yeah, he gets hit with a single shot every once in a while. He gets hit with a little pot shot a couple times around. But it's no, like, when I assess a fighter's defense, I assess it on what type of fighter they are. So we can't compare like Roberto Duran's defense with Pernell Whitaker, because Pernell Whitaker is a defensive first fighter where Roberto Duran is an attacker. So I always say Roberto Duran has the best defense I've ever seen for the attacking style fighters.
Mm-hmm.
But his defense is not going to be the same as Floyd Mayweather's or Pernell Whitaker because they fight differently. Duran is bringing it to you. It's no way you're going to get hit less bringing it to a guy than the guy that's moving away and throwing less punches. It's not possible. So I equate it with that. So I wouldn't equate Boots' defense with the Shakur Stevens. Even though I don't know what their total punch stats is, I think Boots may get hit less overall in the fight because he knocks guys out more. But I wouldn't equate his defense with the Shakur Stevensons of the world. I would equate his defense with a guy like a Tank Davis, a Terrence Crawford. Boxer punchers who are trying to hurt you and stop you. And I honestly don't see a big difference in his defense and Tank's and Bud's. You know what I mean? I think that their defenses are all on a similar level where they get touched every once in a while, but it's not that big of a deal. But they're going to get touched because they're there to knock you out. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yep.
when I hear the media say that, I'm just like, you guys are kind of being lazy with the assessment, and you're not contextualizing it. You're saying it in a way where, yeah, Boots get hit a lot and he's talented. Yeah, but Boots is a knockout artist. So he's going to look like he's going to get hit more than guys like Shakur's. You know what I mean? There's a different like Bam Rodriguez has good defense, but if you watch one of his fights, Bam gets hit because he's trying to knock you out.
Especially that
In
last
a
one.
way, in a way, has tremendous talent, tremendous amount of twitch. In a way, is not unhittable. Those type of, even the great Sugar Ray Robinson, the great Sugar Ray Leonard, they're offensive first fighters. So you're going to see their head get snapped back by a jab every once in a while. For as good as Floyd Mayweather's defense is, right? If you look at the fights where Floyd was trying to be more of an attacker and more of an assassin, Miguel Cotto, he was trying to hurt Cotto. Emmanuel Augustus, he was trying to hurt Emmanuel Augustus. Zab Judah, he was trying to hurt Zab Judah. Floyd got hit in those fights. He did. He got hit in those fights. But if Floyd decides to play keep away and, get on his jab, he has extremely long arms, and if he plays defense first, then you won't touch him. But when he decided to put his offense on the guy and really try to hurt a guy, he got Emmanuel Augustus bloodied his nose. Cotto couldn't miss him with the jab. Zab Judah won 3 out of the first 4 rounds of the fight. When you fight a certain style, you're going to get hit. And I'm not saying that Boots' defense is better than Floyd's. What I'm saying is that mindset causes you to get hit a little bit. And I just think that the critics are a little bit, how can I say this? I think they try to overcompensate and try to come up with something to criticize instead of holding it in the proper context.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then on that point, when he's very good at the last second rolling the shot too. So even if his hand's not up or he doesn't make a perfect clean slip or pull, he does that, last second kind of thing. But there are times when he gets caught clean. And the chin is exposed, and that happens to Inoue too. That's why Inoue's been put down a few times. Benavidez got hurt against Morrell a few times, and like you said, those are offense first, twitchy fighters, and that comes with the territory. Pacquiao would get his head bopped around, attacking and everything. But I don't know. Is that something? Does Zayas have the power? He's a natural lefty, Brad. So it's the power.
I thought he was a natural lefty. I've been
Yeah.
watching him, and he favors the hook a
Yes.
great more deal than the guy who's really right-handed. I said to myself, this guy is naturally left-handed. Anybody can be hurt, Sean. I never get into that. But one
Yeah.
thing I will say about this, as far as Boots is concerned, Boots got a good chin.
Yeah.
So sometimes if you have a little flaw, if you have something tangible or intangible that can make up for it, you're okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, as great as Sugar Ray Robinson was, Sugar Ray Robinson defensively is probably not as good as Willie Pep. But you know what he has better than Willie Pep?
Yeah.
Can't stop him. Stopped one time in 202 fights from heat exhaustion. Has one of the best chins ever. And when these young guys, they start analyzing, well, Robinson didn't do this. Robinson had an iron chin and a 6-ounce horsehair glove era with 202 fights, bro. So maybe, we should look at it in a way of Boots got a set of whiskers on him because he doesn't even show the effect of the punches. And I don't brag about a person's chin. You can have a good chin and then it gets chipped away at, and then you don't have it no more. But we keep talking about his chin, his defense. He's taking the shots. He's not getting knocked down. He's not getting wobbled. He's not getting hit with 3-4 punch combinations where his face is busted up. Maybe we should give him credit for having a good set of whiskers because he's 34, 35 fights in. We haven't seen him hurt. We haven't even seen a flash knockdown. And it can happen. I'm not saying that it can't, but we haven't seen it yet. So I kind of look at it, again, from a little bit of a different perspective. I look at him like, yeah, he gets hit a little bit, but his chin holds up. You know
He's
what I
not a
mean?
glass
Like
cannon.
Yeah, we've seen some really good offensive fighters in the past, you know, who they should have been more defensive because they weren't durable enough to take certain shots. Like, let's remember a guy like Terry Nars. Terry Nars is as good as offensively as anybody we've seen. For him to beat Simon Brown in the rematch, he had to play keep away because he wasn't durable enough to engage Simon Brown like that. Zab Judah, terrific talent, right? Zab Judah suffered a few knockdowns in his career. It probably would have served him to be more defensive and be a little bit more like Pernell Whitaker instead of trying to be a puncher as much, you know. But Boots, I think he's fine because he doesn't his chin holds up. He's durable. You know what I'm saying? That's a big part of that, Sean. If we're gonna talk about how much a guy gets hit, we got to talk about how much he takes the hit, how well he takes them. And,
Hmm.
and thus far, he's shown a nice set of whiskers.
Maybe it's when you're a slick black American fighter, you don't think chin right away. So that's, it goes
True.
again, whereas if he's a come forward Latin fighter, someone like that who puts the pressure on, you'll lend that it'll click with you quicker that, oh, that's part of his game. He has good punch resistance.
I'm glad that you said that because a lot of times we label because of times if you saw a guy get called a slick southpaw because he's a black dude, and then you watch him fight and he's not slick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you got a guy. I'm gonna give you an example: Austin Trout and Canelo. Right?
Yeah.
Canelo is slicker than Trout
Yeah.
as
Right.
far as his defense and his moves, but Trout was called the slick southpaw, where Canelo is actually the slicker fighter. Where Trout actually had the better stamina and better conditioning. He had those traits, but because he's a black dude and he's a southpaw, they call him slick, where he was actually the better conditioned fighter, and Canelo was actually the slicker, more defensive fighter. But because he's a short little redhead Mexican, the label didn't go the right way. That's why you got to look at a guy fight instead of just assuming what they are. And I see that all the time. And you're right. People don't usually equate the slick, talented black guy with having the chin. That's why I brought up Sugar Ray Robinson. When you talk about the list of the great chins in boxing, people miss him. And how do you miss a guy that started at 134, ended at 160 for 25 years and never got stopped? How
Yeah.
do you miss him? You know what I mean? So it doesn't get equated with that. But when you look at Boots, look at how he takes a punch. Look at how he reacts when he gets hit. The kid has a good set of whiskers, but he never gets credit for it.
I would think if he gets dropped at some point, this fight or four, it would be because he would get caught out of position because he takes such unique angles that are off of the textbook sometimes that it would be someone would catch him with something in between out of position or something more so than he can't take a good shot. It would be he's a little off balance in between shots, something like that. He's setting something else up and he gets caught before he finishes his move. Um, but he's also a really
You
good
see that.
punctuator, Brad. He's also one thing I noticed about, and I know that's another way of saying you're a counterpuncher is when you punctuate the exchange, but he really is a punctuator, like he'll take a shot, roll some of it, or take it clean, and a millisecond later, boom, over the top with his own firepower, and he's always won that game, and I think that's something to look out for in this fight too. Even if Xander can touch him with something in the exchange, he could punctuate the exchange. I don't know. I'm just excited for the fight, as you could tell too. But what do you think?
He's very reactive when it comes
Right,
to being hit. You
right.
know, the David Avanesian fight, Avanesian landed a brutal shot over the top, and Boots, you say he. I'm glad you said that, man, because I can't talk boxing with everybody. Even though he does get hit, he sees the shot. And when you see the shot, it doesn't have the same kind of effect with the shot that you don't see. I worry about a guy's chin who gets hit and he never sees the shot. Like a good friend of mine is Virgil Hunter, and he trained Amir Khan. And it would always scare me that Verge has such a job to do because one little mistake that Khan make can cost you the fight. Because Khan not only does he doesn't have the best chin in the world, he doesn't see shots well. So it's almost like somebody walking down the street, like, hey, Sean, what's up? Boom, and drop a right hand right on the point of your chin. There's a shock value to a punch that you don't see. And
Yeah.
for whatever reason, Khan didn't see punches well. Where Boots, he sees everything. And that's part of having a good chin. Same like Canelo. Canelo, in my opinion, has the best chin in boxing because he sees every punch that's coming to him. You know what I mean? So he can brace for. He knows how to take the punch. So that's a great point that you made. Um, I think when they criticize Boots, they miss it. To me, the real criticism of Boots, and I'll be totally honest, and this is coming from somebody that likes him, he's impatient sometimes. That's me calling it the way it is. That's a much bigger thing than me than this supposed lack of defense. Boots, boot, Boots will force things, and with the crowd, and they're yelling and screaming, and they're casuals. And even if the celebrities who say they aren't casuals, most of them are casuals, and they treat fights like a video game and think he's supposed to go in there and knock a guy out when he hits him one time, and that's not how real boxing works. So Boots will get impatient and start loading up on shots and start doing things that his talent shouldn't allow him to do, but he will get impatient. I think that's a bigger key to this fight than his supposed lack of defense. I think he has to be very patient. He has to be very sharp, and he has to not take Xander for granted because he knows he's more talented than Xander, and he can't worry about them crowd and the people that are telling him to go knock Xander out because the fight's not over in 2 rounds. That's a bunch of baloney. He has to listen to his dad and his brothers in his corner and do whatever game plan that they have. And for the record, I haven't been in their gym one time during camp. I don't go around. I like to leave people alone, so I
Yeah.
don't know what's going on in their camp. I don't get into all of that. But the crowd, to me, distracts Boots. Like, they yell, and he'll look back in the crowd. I think that's a much bigger deal than his. People saying he don't have defense, because I think his defense is actually good for his style. But he can't become impatient with this kid, because if he's missing and he's falling around, and Xander is giving the appearance that he's boxing, and the crowd is on Xander's side, then the judges might start going the other way with the rounds. Boots has to stay sharp, and he cannot worry about if he don't have Xander out of there in a certain amount of time. You know what I mean? He has to be very, very conscious of that.
Well, Xander has talked about that heading into the fight. He says he thrives off the exciting part of the fight when the chaos happens and the crowd is into it. He says it's those slow moments that are methodical that give him fits, and that's how I'm going to make him uncomfortable. And then when he doesn't expect it, that's when I take his heart. And I take that as Xander saying, box, 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 box. And then at some point, pick my spots to impose my size and impose my will on him again. Brett, I got to give Xander a lot of credit, not just for taking the fight, but his mentality is A1 heading into this fight
Yes, sir.
from an intellect standpoint, from a confidence standpoint. I know that can change once you get in there with a talent like Ennis and the firepower touches you and is coming your way. But heading into the fight, do you agree with me? Like, you got to love where Xander's head is at game plan wise, how much he studied Ennis and what he believes he can execute Saturday
I,
night.
I really respect Zayas's perspective of this fight,
Yeah.
because he doesn't see it wrong, and he has to be optimistic with his chances. And I've been listening to him talk. He's actually an intelligent kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I respect his trainer, because his trainer put together a game plan with George Kambosos to defeat the undefeated Teofimo Lopez. And this is no disrespect to Kambosos, but he's nowhere near Lopez in terms of talent. But they got it done. And Xander is a much better talent than Kambosos. So that's why I say everybody has a chance, because if he could do that with Kambosos, imagine what he could do with Xander, because Xander's better than Kambosos. Respectfully, I've never say anything bad about a fighter, but in just terms of talent, Xander's a better fighter than Kambosos. You know what I mean? And the talent level between Boots and Xander is not as big as the talent level between Kambosos and Teofimo Lopez, but they was able to win that fight. So I respect Xander's team. I respect his preparation. I respect his perspective. But stylistically, the thing that I think is going to be Xander's problem is the thing that I think that Boots gets overlooked for. Everybody thinks that Xander's fundamentals are so much better than Boots's. But Boots has an amazing jab, Sean.
Yeah, yeah.
His jab
Out of both
is
stances.
a jab is the most important punch in boxing. It's hard, it's fast, and I haven't heard anybody say this, it's rhythm breaking, because he puts it in different spots. and Xander fights off the bounce. And when you fight off the bounce, it's hard to defend the jab to the body because you're bouncing. And the way that you defend the jab to the body oftentimes is to sit down on it and block it with your elbows, but that's very difficult to do if you're in a bounce. So not only do I think that Boots has a major edge in talent, I think stylistically, a fighter that's constantly bouncing like Xander, it's hard for him to defend his body when Boots is jabbing him to the head, the chest, and the belly button over and over again, because you can't defend your body with a jab. That's a stylistic thing. Ali is my favorite fighter. He walks on water to me. But he having a lot of trouble with Ken Norton because Ken Norton is jabbing him at his chest all the time, and that breaks your rhythm. And I haven't heard anybody talk about this because they talk about Ennis's power and his speed and his flashiness, but there's a lot more to him than this. They overlook his chin and they overlook his jab, showing his jab is equal from both sides, which is rare.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of guys, South that switch back and forth, something might not be as good on either side. Bro, his jab is no different from the left hand stance to the right hand stance. He has a great jab. Even if the talent level was not was the same, in my opinion, I think that the way Boots sets up his jab will constantly break Xander's rhythm. And the reason why I bring that up is because if Xander tries to fight a more energy efficient fight and sit in the pocket, he's gonna get knocked out brutally, bro. He's gonna get knocked out brutally. So the only fight, in my opinion, that he could fight is a bouncy rhythmic fight where he's in and out and trying to minimize and quell down the exchanges. But the problem with that is Boots has a rhythm breaking jab. And if you notice Xander in the second half of fight, Sean, he hasn't lost yet, but he loses some steam.
His legs get heavy. Yeah.
His style is not energy efficient.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not energy efficient. He has to be up there in that bounce constantly like that to be effective, and his legs get heavy. And when his legs get heavy, his defense gets poor. So we talk about how much Boots gets hit, but in the second half of this fight, when the adrenaline from the crowd and everything kind of goes, kind of calms down a little bit, Boots is going to be in there smiling and relaxing, and Xander's going to have to fight that stressed out kind of fight, because if he settles down in the pocket, he's going to get hurt. That's the problem with this fight for Xander. The energy, he wants to take the fight into the later rounds, and he wants to take the fight the distance, but his legs get heavy in fights, and I haven't heard anybody say it. I'm not saying the kid has like stamina issues, but what I am saying is because of his style, his energy levels go down in the second part of the fight. That's
that
a
would happen
problem.
to Cotto too. With Sean, I was talking with Sean Porter yesterday, and he said once Cotto started his step off, that's pretty much what you saw down the stretch of the fight, and he would fade a little bit and not be as strong in the exchanges and not able to impose himself once he got to his step off game. And yeah, Zayas is going to kind of be doing that from round one. I think though, Zayas, if he has,
and he cuts a lot of weight. And he cuts
Yeah.
a lot of weight. So we're talking about his size, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about the size, but the size goes both ways. First of all, you have to make weight. And second of all, you have to be able to compete within your style for how much weight you cut. So everybody's like, Xander's bigger than Boots. He walks around 190, 200 pounds. Okay, well, he has to be functional at that weight when he's fighting a killer who is sharper than him, is faster than him, and has no conditioning issues. That's another thing that people keep sort of conveniently overlooking. If you watch Xander really, really close, he fades down the stretch of fights. So we have to see if he can keep that up with the guy just as long, sharper, punches harder, faster trigger release. We have to see if he can keep that up with that level of guy. And I think it's going to be a tough task for him.
Yeah, but like you mentioned, and Ennis does have a great jab, southpaw and orthodox. But to try to give you something to contrast it, though, he uses it as a weapon a lot too, and he can fall in love with his other tools. You talked about him getting impatient, so I could see him getting away from the jab because he likes to force things sometimes. At some point, he wants to bust out the heavy artillery, and also his jab, because it's it's another weapon. It's not just a range finder. It's something he could punish you with. Is he a little heavy on the front foot with the jab? Not heavy on the front foot, might be a bit much, but because he's throwing it with conviction every time, and the fact that he might get away from it after the first couple rounds because he wants to bust out the heavy artillery, and he's got a guy moving around on him. And I know you mentioned when you're in the bounce, getting touched to the body with it, those kinds of things. And then for Zayas, even though he's burning up a lot of energy, if he's not loading up on shots and he's ahead 4-2 halfway through, he may pick his spots to try to impose his size only in spots and maybe that's his way to victory. What's your thoughts on all those different things?
Listen, it's a possibility. Like,
Yeah.
listen, Boots has to be on his A game. There's
Yeah.
definitely a possibility. Like I said, Roy Jones lost a fight. And Roy Jones is the most talented guy I've seen. Roy Jones is the best fighter I've seen in my lifetime, along with Sugar Ray Leonard, Sean. So that's how highly I think of Roy Jones. I got Leonard 1A and Jones 1B in my lifetime that I've seen with my own two eyes. Roy Jones, and I bring up Roy Jones because he didn't lose a fight till later in his career. Montel Griffin disqualification, but he didn't lose till he was like 35 years old. Leonard lost a little earlier in their career. So anybody could lose. If Boots is 90% of himself and Xander is 110% of what we ever seen him be, it can happen. And the most talented guy doesn't win on every fight. Yeah. Iran Barkley beat Tommy Hearns. Shit can happen in fights. Do I think that this will happen with Boots? No, but I don't rule it out. Xander and his coach obviously see something. He has the right mindset. Let me frustrate him. Let me make him reach. I've heard his comments about Boots' feet. I get all of that. But now it's time to execute it. It's one thing to say it. It's a little bit different than execute it. Right. And let me tell you something. It's something I used to tell all my fighters. Every time you fight, you're auditioning. Because when you struggle and when you have a tough night, or even if you lose, it becomes tougher then because the good coaches and the good trainers, they pick up on what gave you trouble. So the Karen fight is going to be certain people's blueprint to try to beat Boots until he proves to them that that's not it. He's going to have to prove it.
Yeah.
But in the Karen fight, he won every round. So we got to, we have to, Karen wasn't able to implement much offense in the first fight, but he was able to go the distance and frustrate Boots. So we just have to see, you know what I mean? I don't make excuses and take up for losses and things like that or off nights because that was real. Karen went the distance with him twice. So we can't say it was luck. It was a real thing. But I think it may become a little bit overblown. I think the media does things certain ways, man. They talk about guys' competition level, and I say, I'll look to see if the guy was rated in the Ring magazine. I look for certain things like that. And I think certain guys' competition levels get a little bit overblown and underblown. Like Boots, for example. He doesn't have a great resume. He's about to be 29. He has 35 fights. But his resume is not his resume is better than Xander's. Right? Got the Lipinets win. Lipinets is a very good fighter.
I think if Garcia would have lost to Conwell and that's who Xander fought for the belt,
it would be different, but it didn't happen like that.
Right.
Even the Avanesian thing, Sean.
He knocked out Josh Kelly. Yeah.
He knocked Josh Kelly out. Josh Kelly's the champion of the world, and Josh Kelly beat Bakram, who was supposed to be the boogeyman in the division because what he did to Tim Tszyu.
True.
So I sit back and I watch the guys in the media. You see how you cut me off and said that? Showing if you know that, then the other guys in the media know that. But they'll go and repeat, oh, Boots' resume is so terrible. And I'm like, Boots' resume is what you call a solid resume for this era. Is it great? No. Is it terrible? It's not. They said the same thing about Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford doesn't have a great resume. You can't put his resume next to like Pacquiao's and Ray Leonard's and Oscar De La Hoya's and all those kind of guys. But it's a solid resume. You know what I mean? It's a solid resume. And I think the same thing is happening with Boots, where I look at some of the guys and I'm like, wait a minute. His resume is better than Xander's. If his resume, that guy a boss in Boots, that's a 4-round fight, bro.
Yeah.
Right? Boots beat 5 guys like the guy that Xander won the title from. For whatever reason, that guy upset Sean Conwell. I mean, Charles Conwell, and it's a solid win. Xander can't help that he upset Conwell, but the fact is that guy he's a decent guy.
He's
If
got a
Boots,
Patrick Teixeira, who did beat Adamas.
okay,
You know,
okay, that's a
yeah,
good win.
yeah, yeah, good
That's a good
little,
one.
yeah, yeah,
That's a good one. And Boots has Vila,
right.
Roman Vila, because
Rashidi,
Rashidi Ellis is a talented guy.
yeah.
So I just think it gets overblown a little bit.